lahat. Ako po si Camille Morquilla, ang kalihim ng LIB, at kasama po ng aking mga kasamahang opisyal. Kami po ay nagpapasalamat sa lahat ng naririto ngayon at piniling maglaan ng oras sa pagdalo sa ating ikalawang bahagi ng ating conversation with an author. Tulad po ng nabanggit noong nakaraang linggo, ang gawain po nating ito ay naglalayong mapalapit pang lalo ang bawat isa sa atin sa panitikan. Sino bang hindi kung nakikita at nakakausap na natin ng personal ang mga tao sa likod ng ating mga binabasa? Gayun din, pauna na po itong imbitasyon sa ating lahat para sa magaganap na ikatlong internasyonal na komperhensa sa edukasyong pampanitikan sa darating na Oktubre. At sa atin pong bisita, maraming salamat po sa pagpili na makasama kami ngayong hapon. Isa pong karangalan na makakwentuhan kayo. At para kilalanin kung sino nga ba ang ating bisita at makakakwentuhan ngayong hapon, narito po si Doc Jen upang ipakilala ang ating bisita.
Magandang hapon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our second installment of Conversations with an Author. Sa nabanggit po ni Camille, we are very privileged this afternoon to sit and be acquainted with the Merlie Alunan. When you Google Ma'am Merlie, we would know her to be the Visayan poet, someone who graduated from the prestigious Silliman University, who seemingly for us, literates and literature enthusiasts, seemingly is the center of gravity for anything literary, no? Parang lahat ng galing sa Silliman University. We also know her to be a recipient of the Palanca Awards and a strong woman and a strong woman poet for that matter. In the classroom, we know her Heartstone, Sacred Tree, Amina Among Angels, Tales of the Spider-Woman. But I have a personal favorite amongst her poems, that is The High and Dead. With the first line, no, ang first line niya doon, strong na babae nagsasalita, ordering us coming from that strong woman's voice, do not sleep. Okay, yun ang kanyang first line. And so this is where I wish to begin today's conversation. Do not sleep, lest you forget or lest you miss out on important points this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, the Merlie Alunan. Hi, ma'am. Magandang hapon po. Would you like to say hi to our participants this afternoon? Ma'am, you're still on mute po. There you
Good
go.
afternoon to everyone. It's a privilege to be here in the solitude of my retirement. I actually do not go out, hardly go out anymore. I don't talk to anyone except myself most times and my computer. Very few people know where I live, and some of them, of course, do make it a point to visit me every now and then. So that is the company I keep, almost solitary and very quiet, very obscure. So to be invited to attend a meeting like this, a conference like this, it's also really a great honor for me. So thank you for inviting me and making me a part of your activity. Kasi I am happily retired and I have accepted the the loneliness of retirement. Pero hindi naman siya lonely kasi marami naman akong nagagawa. At saka, now and then, tinatawag naman ako ninyo, ganon, ganito, this way. And so it's a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And we thank you again for saying yes to this afternoon's conversation. So, ma'am, ang mga kasamahan po natin ngayon ang mga participants.
Jenny, actually,
yes,
I never say no.
Oh, that's a pleasure to know, ma'am, that you never say no to people.
I never say no to anyone who asks to talk to me or to visit
hear your
me.
voice.
Hear my voice. I never say no. As long as I am able, I always say yes, whether they pay me or not.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, no, in the solitude of your retirement. So,
yes.
ma'am, ang mga kasama po natin ngayong hapon are are members or non-members of the Literature Educators Association of the Philippines. Most of us are students of literature, teachers of literature, and just about anyone whose love for literature is just, overwhelming. Ano po. Ma'am, ito pong hapon na ito, gusto namin kayong mas makilala pa bilang kami ay nagbabasa ng iyong mga tula. Natatandaan ko, ma'am, nung una kitang nakilala, it was in the discussion for feminism, no? In the discussion for a strong woman voice in the Philippines.
Yes.
Ang una naming tanong, ma'am, mula sa ating mga participants din ay, who are your influences, ma'am, or inspirations in writing? Sabi nung estudyante ako, who is your muse, no? May ganun ba, ma'am, sa iyong pagsusulat?
Para lang yung question ng mga estudyante na tumatawag sa akin every now and then sa messenger. Who is your inspiration? Para kasi siyang in my case at least, no. It started because I guess I was reading more than the ordinary kid was reading at the time I was growing up. So you cannot help but dream that maybe you would be able to someday, write a book or write anything anyway. So it started like that. So who was my inspiration? Actually, the writing did not really become very pronounced until I went to Silliman University and I came under the tutelage of Edith and Idilberto Tiempo.
Okay.
They were particularly Edith, was you might say, my lodestar. I was in her class and in the graduate school, and then, it was she who opened the nature of literature to me. I understood what literature was, and I understood how the work is put together. It became clear to me the relationship of the writer and the word, and the relationship of the writer with the world of letters, as a whole. Your place in the total scheme of things. Of course, your place is very minuscule. But still, despite that knowledge, you go on. You go on doing what you can. Yeah.
Right.
In humility. Always in humility. That there are those who had come before you, and those who are better than you at that point in time in which you exist and you are doing your own thing. So I would say that Edith was the one who opened that door for me, opened that kind of understanding for me.
Okay.
And
go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, ma'am. So ibig sabihin talaga, ma'am, no, yung writing mo is a product of your tutelage, no, your studies with Edith Tiempo and your knowledge of the world. You said something, ma'am, that trickled my curiosity, and that is to be humble. When you're writing, there's this passion, there's context of humility. Does that mean, ma'am, that when we look into writing, because there are so many questions about how can they publish, how can they be a good poet, maybe the question, ma'am, to ask is, when you started writing and you said it's not really a plan, it's not a great plan until you were under the great Edith Tiempo, was writing part of your personality, or is it something that can be learned, as you said, through Edith, or is it something that comes to you? And how can we make it a point to be humble in all of those contexts, ma'am?
I think it begins with a person developing relationship with the word, your relationship with the word. When words are kind of, friendly to you, and words will not let you alone, they keep running around in your mind because you've been reading. So you've been reading the best words that people have ever written through the ages. That's what happens. That's why when a young person asks me how to become a writer, I would just simply say, read.
Read.
Read. There's no other way. By reading, you become more familiar with the word. You become familiar with the way that other more, more talented, more gifted persons than you have used it.
Mm-hmm.
And you become friendly with the word. It becomes like a lover to you. You sleep with it, you dream of it. It hums in your ears at any time of your daily life. So you develop a relationship with the word. They become someone very intimate to you, someone
Nako.
that keeps talking to you. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean that's really how it felt with me when I was
Right.
still not able to write,
Mm. Ang ganda
because
nun,
I
ma.
was not able to write for a long time. I was not a young writer. I did not start writing when I was young. I just liked words. They were friendly to me. They accompanied me in my daily life, in
Mhm.
everything that I do, whether I was awake or asleep. I think they're still there. They're always there. And so, kind of a romantic way of saying it, no, but that's really what it is like, what it was like.
Mm.
Uh, yeah.
Ang ganda nun, ma'am. When you said
Oo.
that the words become your lover, ano? Parang they sleep with you and go with you in your everyday lives, no? That gives us passion, no? As teachers of literature, that gives us more passion to continue on working and having relationship with words, no? Kaya lang, ma'am, ang dami naman na naming binasa, parang hindi pa rin kami makasulat. So, other than the relationship with words, did you, ma'am, start just writing without publishing and just allowing your thoughts to flow in a piece of on a piece of paper, or did you share it to your immediate friends, immediate family, or to your early students, ma'am?
Um, my first incursion into the literary world, the world
Mhm,
of written word, where people actually read you and people actually take you seriously.
mhm.
Also happened when I joined the Silliman Writers Workshop. I
Okay.
wasn't I wasn't with Silliman yet at that time. I just joined the Silliman Writers. I think it was the first writers workshop ever held in Silliman in 1962. I I may be wrong because my memory of dates is very lousy. Um, and I submitted a story which must have been really bad. No, it must have been really awfully bad. And I guess they laughed at my story. But in those days, that's why you have to be humble. You know, when you are writing, you have to be humble, because when you present your work, you never know how the others will treat it. They might accept it. They might say it's
Mhm,
bad, it's awful. They might say it's trash. It's okay. I mean, they have the right to say that. People have the right to say that.
mhm,
So you have to be able to take that. Um, that was when I first discovered that I must really want to write, because I must really be a part of this world, because I felt so at home. For the first time in my life, I felt so at home with the people I was with, you
mhm,
know, because most of the time I always felt like an odd one out. I mean, in any group of my peers, I always felt that I was somehow kind of weird or kind of strange. So with the writers, with that writers group in 1962, I felt that I was at home with them. Uh,
mhm, mhm.
and I was at home with the things that they were crazy about, which to an ordinary person, to most people would be really kind of meaningless. So that's when I began to write, but write a little bit, but I did not take myself seriously,
Mhm,
because in the 60s, if you are a Bisaya,
mhm.
you live in Cebu, uh, nobody was writing. I mean, nobody was writing. Nobody was coming out with
Oo.
books. It was so hard to get published
Mm, mm,
because the publishers were all in Manila, and
mm.
gatekeepers are in Manila, and you feel as if, we have no place. There's no space for you, in that world. Um, True enough, who gave me a break were still people in Manila,
Mhm.
friends of mine, students who have become big, who have become well known in Manila. They opened the door for me to be published.
Okay.
And so
Right.
that's when I began to take myself a little bit seriously. You
So
know,
you started with words but did not believe in yourself yet and not take yourself seriously. But you kept on writing, ma'am. You kept on writing and writing.
kind of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you sort of keep a diary in all of these, notes that you have your good words that came habang nagluluto ka, ma'am, habang naglalaba ka? Do you have that, ma'am?
Kaya, I think that's one of the things that I always fail in doing.
Mm-mm.
Uh, Di ba I told you about words coming to you
Yes,
all
ma'am.
every day, and really the best way to do that would be to catch them when they come to you, to write them
Right.
down when they come to you. But all my life, all my life, I have never been able to do that. So
Um,
they slip away. Some of them stay, and then I can get them back. I can recall them. I can put them
mhm,
down. But some
mhm.
go away. So until now, I still cannot keep a diary, even if I try.
Oh, okay.
Loads of diary that I started writing in, and then after a few pages, I get bored. Or no, I
Mm,
don't get bored. I'm just too busy.
too busy.
I'm
Yeah.
just too busy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just too busy because my life hadn't been easy.
You're
I
right.
had to raise 5 children by myself, so
Mm,
that wasn't really very good for the creative life because you have to go to market, you have to cook, you have to see to it that everybody is fed, the clothes
mhm,
are laundered,
mhm.
uh, the refrigerator is stocked for the week, stuff like that. Very, very taxing.
Right.
So you grab whatever you can grab out of the flow of things that
Okay.
happen, to you in a day.
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
it. That's the way it goes.
Right,
That's the
right.
way it went.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Ma'am, pag pinapakinggan kita parang ano 'no, talagang yung images are running in my head 'no, as the words flow, as you said, as you do laundry, as you cook. These are words that come into your mind. What a wonderful opportunity, ma'am, to listen to you saying all of these things. Ma'am, let me go back to what you
You
said
see,
earlier.
Jen, I'm saying all this because it's not easy for women to to
Right, right.
to indulge in the creative life, and I know
Mm,
a lot of women who are bitter because they know they have the gift. They have the gift to paint. They have the gift to sing. They have the gift to create whatever it is they want to create. They want to be writers. They want to tell stories. I
mhm,
know many of them who are like that and
mm,
who carry the dream, carry the urge, carry the passion with them. But it's a passion that they can never indulge themselves
right,
with. Yeah. And so they grow
right.
old in bitterness. They grow
Mhm,
old
mhm,
feeling very bitter, feeling very cheated, you know.
mhm.
And then later on, of course, they convince themselves that whatever they have done or have not been able to do was really, might was just as well that it happened the way it did.
Mhm, mhm.
Acceptance. Acceptance.
Okay. Ma'am, you ventured into that context. Mamaya ko pa sana itatanong yan, pero nandiyan na tayo, ma'am. Ma'am, do you feel with your feelings about how women are portrayed or how women portray themselves, no? How they write and how they are not able to write, the ability to present themselves and not to present themselves. Do you consider, ma'am, your writings to be, as I've said earlier, ma'am, nakilala kita sa isang feminist class, no? Sa isang feminist na focus no na topic sa isang literary
Ano
criticism.
naman yung pinagbasa nyo na feminist?
Ma'am,
Kunyari,
yung woman's voice no, yung strong woman voice na ibinibigay mo sa yung mga tula. Do you consider, ma'am, your poems to be a vessel of women? Na kung hindi natin gagamitin yung salitang feminismo, ma'am, would you consider your poems to be this as a strong woman voice, ma'am? Or were you conscious that you are bringing this voice of a woman of trying to get hold of herself in a quagmire of life, ma'am?
Well, in the beginning,
Hmm?
when I when I when I did when I did Hearthstone Sacred Tree, for example, that's my first collection of poetry.
Right, right.
That book is mostly woman as mother. So a lot of the poems there are about me and my children and how I raised them, and stuff that has to do with motherhood. Um, I was not, you might say, particularly self-consciously feminist when I was writing that. I was just writing that from the point of view of a woman experiencing the things that she has to deal with as a woman in her life. So I wasn't particularly feminist in those poems. Not even in Amina Among the Angels. Uh, I wouldn't say, Jenny, that I'm particularly feminist in my
Mm-hmm.
approach to poetry. At least I am not writing from that point of
Your
view. The
perspective.
theoretical feminism that we are familiar with.
Right,
I
correct.
wasn't writing from. I don't think I ever wrote from that point of view, except a few poems, which, to my mind, are really truly feminist, like. The poem addressed to the muse. I wonder if you're familiar with that. You're
Interesting.
familiar with that. In that poem where a woman was calling down a Miss somebody, a muse, a Miss Universe, or a Miss Philippines, whatever. A muse, and telling her na telling her that she should come down from her high perch because it's fun. It's more fun to be out there where people get dirty, and soaking
Mm-hmm.
up things
Mm-hmm.
and writing, getting ink smeared and all that. So that is really distinctly feminist. You might
Right.
say written from a truly feminist point of view. But on
Mm-hmm.
the whole, I am just in most of my poems, I am just talking about my life as a woman. My life as a woman, an academic, uh, an, uh, an accidental poet.
We wouldn't call it like that, ma'am, no?
Uh, I think it was really truly more accidental than anything. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
didn't supposed to become one. It
Right.
just happened.
It just
So
happens.
it
Thank
happened.
you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for that answer. In most cases, maybe the classrooms view your poems as that of a woman poet. As you've said earlier, it's not all the time that we get strong women voices in poems, even up to this time, despite us reading very strong poems, sorry, literary texts written by women poets, women writers. We still get a bunch of male perspectives in the whole view of the Philippines and the Philippine literary angle. And so maybe that course of teachers like me who looks into this perspective as you as a woman's voice giving birth to the life of another woman, maybe a mother, maybe a wife, a daughter, etc. Those are really strong points, ma'am, na naku, sana talagang ma-invite pa kayo sa maraming classrooms now talking about your poems. At this point, ma'am, I'd like to call on one participant to maybe ask a question, maybe one participant who could give a question on the chat room. I have all of their questions, but I'd like to hear their voice while, and you can listen to their voice as they ask you the question. Maybe I can ask Sir Clinton Dayot. Can you turn on your microphone, Clinton?
Hi,
And ask
Ma'am
a question.
Jan.
Go ahead and ask your question.
Bill
Hi,
Clinton.
Ma'am Merlie. Hi, everyone. I was really fascinated with Ma'am Merlie, no? Lalo na yung akda niyang Sa Atong Dila at saka Pagdakop sa
Mhm.
Bulalakaw. But I always wonder, um, if how can I, kasi I'm a classroom teacher, how can I use those texts? Kasi it's really hard to decipher the meaning of his poetry, lalo na at nakasulat pa ito in some local languages.
Oh my goodness. And that's probably why when I wrote sa atong, no, when I wrote Pagdakop sa Bulalakaw, the book.
Wow.
Yeah, it's Ateneo de Manila
Mhm.
University Press. I translated all the poems into English. Maybe not the best translation you can find. I think authors make very, very bad translators of their own work. But
Mhm.
I tried to translate it as I would. I tried to translate the poems as not as the author, but I tried to translate it as if the poems were not mine. I tried to take the point of view that the poem must remain as it is. I would not touch it as an author. I would translate it as a translator, not myself would be translating it. So maybe the translations are not very good, but you can find your way in English in the book. I have a very, because I am also a teacher of literature, and I really learned a lot from my students. And I am really, you might say, proud that I have been able to make poetry comprehensible in a very simple way. No?
Mm.
In fact, I have a book where I would like to, I have a book, I have the manuscript for a book, which I would like to, in which I teach how to teach poetry, that sort of thing.
Wow.
Because I've spent a whole lifetime also teaching literature. That's how I earned my living. So the question of, what's his name again?
Clinton.
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 The question of Clinton, how do we use the poems in these materials? In Pagdakop sa Bulalakaw, first, well, there's a translation. And secondly, you approach it the way you approach any other poem. To me, I always start teaching a poem by asking the students or letting the students identify who is speaking in the poem.
Mhm.
Who
Mhm.
is speaking in the poem? What is the context in which the speech is made? Because my basic idea about a poem is it's basically a human utterance, a human speech.
Okay.
And a human speech always starts from a condition that prompts him to speak the way he does. So the entire universe in which that speech is made should be, the reader should try to grasp, the wholeness of that universe. What is the psychological state? How old is the speaker, do you think? Is the speaker a woman? Who is he speaking to? Is he speaking to himself or is he speaking to somebody? Is this somebody listening to him? Or is this somebody, not paying attention to him? All of these. And then when you are into that, you have tackled that first phase of reading, then you try to understand. Then you can understand what the speech is trying to do, whether it's trying to make you do something or make you understand something, whether it calls for sympathy or it tries to raise you to some level of anger. You can then tell, if you know the context in which the speech is made, where the poem is bringing you and whether you want to go with the poet to where he wants to bring you, or you can resist and come out with an argument of your own. You counter what the poem is trying to say. as yourself. So you have a kind of conversation with the poem with yourself. Now, if we approach a poem like that, I think it would become more meaningful to the student because why? Because they encounter such conditions in their life every day. So I don't really go for I'm sorry, I don't really go for the very heavy theoretical approaches that
Understanding,
are
yeah,
so
yeah,
popular today among higher level.
right,
Uh,
right,
I, I I I teach poetry as a human speech,
right,
as a
right.
speech that
As
devolves in the
conversation, ma'am, no? Yeah,
conversation.
right, right. Okay, okay. That's I think answered Clinton's
So
question, and that
Clinton,
gave
you can
us
do many things with the text. Basta
uh-huh, uh-huh.
naiintindihan mo kung anong ginagawa ng text.
Basta alam mo
Oo.
lang ang sinasabi ng text, ma'am,
Oo.
no? Opo, sige.
Oo.
It's nice to know, ma'am, that I have not looked into your writings, which are originally in Visaya. I have not encountered a translation of your writings. Those that are originally in Visaya, ma'am, and
This one is
it's nice to
translated.
know. Right. It's nice to know that you have translations, ma'am. Uh, Ma'am, in what you've mentioned earlier about how you teach a poem and it's a conversation, it's dealing with the words and utterances and the emotions brought forth by the poem. Do you think, ma'am, that as we do it, as most teachers in the field now would do it, do you think that there's an over reading or an over teaching of poems? Is there an overindulgence to the theories, the use of the theories to understand a poem nowadays?
I'd rather not say anything about that.
Okay.
Uh,
I like that.
because I'd rather not say anything because if I were to go back teaching now, I would still teach it the old way,
The
the way
old
that
one.
I was teaching it. I am aware of the theories, the construction and all of that. And I in fact, the process that I am telling you about is also a way of a mode of deconstruction, but
Right, right.
I do not use I do not use the language. I use the language that people use every day. And probably because having been trained in literature from a different point of view and a different period of time, uh, I have not. Uh, I have a kind of resistance against
Mhm.
against the lingo, against the jargon, against the language that people are using nowadays to study literature. So
Right.
uh, even if the theory is known to me, I would still prefer to use, you know, the way we ordinary humans talk, so
Right,
that we
right.
will understand each
Mhm.
other.
Maybe to talk about that significant human experience, ma'am, to capitalize on that, to
Yun yung
capitalize
say.
on the everyday happenings. All right. We get you, ma'am. We get you on all of those perspectives. Okay, ma'am. To continue, as we've been talking, and we thank Clinton for that question that opened
I'd
up
like to ask
another.
Clinton, is there any rejoinder from you? How does that explanation feel to you?
Hi, Ma'am Merlie. I was really overwhelmed with the explanation, Ma'am Mer. Lalo na kasi I'm from Negros Oriental and you are really close to our hearts. Ang lapit kasi ng mga akda mo dito sa amin. We're using it in teaching in North and Silliman University. I even saw some of my students here in this discussion, this Zoom meeting. More on sa atong dila, Ma'am Merlie. How can, not really how can, but have you ever thought on writing more about Negros Oriental and Dumaguete?
Oh, my love, I wish I can. Okay, this is atong dila. This
Hindi
is
lang.
introduction to Visayan literature in 5 languages. These are 5
Oh,
major Visayan languages. Yeah. Can be seen? Can you see it?
not so clear, ma'am.
Yeah,
Okay.
not so clear.
Yan,
Okay,
yan, sa
there
ating
you
dila.
go.
Opo, opo.
I would like to very much. In fact, I wonder if you're aware that I did write a book entitled Kabilin, 100 Years of Negros Oriental.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I have a copy of that book,
You have
ma'am,
a copy of that.
including the Dumaguete Winos that you published.
Also that, yes. Uh, if I had stayed in Siliman, I would have been able to do that maybe, but it's okay. I'm too old, my dear, so you do it. You do it. It's up to
That's
you to
it.
do it now. Take
Right,
over.
right, right. A big and really a tremendous work, no, for all of us, no,
Yeah.
following your steps, ma'am. Ma'am, as we are in that conversation of literature that you've written for your region, for Negros, for as a Visayan literary writer, we have one question here. When we talk about curriculum, no, in the Philippines, the K to 12, including that of the higher ed, we always view literatures coming from different regions, and we call them regional literature. Early's question is this categorization helpful? Is this not divisive? No, like when we say Philippine literature and then regional literature, that is also true even in the higher education, ma'am, that we have courses, maybe topics that we call them regional literature. What's your view on this, ma'am?
You know, I just did a lecture, a keynote lecture for Umpil, which
From Peel,
yeah, the divisiveness is rooted in our language policy in the country. It
Mm-hmm.
cannot be helped. When we decided that we needed a national language and we chose one Filipino language to be the national language, and thereafter reduced all the other languages in the country to secondary subsidiary status.
Okay,
Where
okay.
is your division? How do you solve that?
Right, right,
How
right.
do you put that right? And
Mhm.
so for this last 100 years or more, actually have been living the divisiveness. We have actually made the divisiveness even more pronounced. If you notice, uh, Jenny, when we enter school, we study only two kinds of literature
Mhm.
as embodied in our national language policy. We study literature in English and we study literature in Filipino
Filipino.
and no
Correct.
other literature thereafter. It
Right.
seems that our curriculum, um, the planners of our curriculum has blinded itself to the reality that there are so many languages in the Philippines and that each of these languages have bodies of literature of their own.
Right. Right.
But not only are the natives, let us say, the natives, the speakers of the language, told to forget your literature because that is not necessary in the scheme of things. We already have two. We already have English and we
Mhm.
already have Filipino. What else do we need your literature for? So you may, you know, forget it. That's what our curriculum is teaching us. Now,
Right.
of course, the natives themselves, the speakers of the language, the speakers of the mother tongue, have not forgotten their own mother language.
Mhm.
And so you will see that here in Saatong Dila, you will see that they have kept up, the writers of the languages have kept up with the times, with literary progress. They have kept on writing, they write in the modern stance, but their voices have never been heard, not even by the natives themselves. Why? Because their literatures are not in any of the textbooks. What are in
Right.
the textbooks are materials in English and materials in Filipino, none
Mhm.
at all in the local languages. So we have really been living and exacerbating that division all
Right.
these last 100 years.
Right. Okay. So it's a divisive context, ma'am, and it must be within the realms of people like us in the literature
In the
educators.
literature, yes.
To make sure
Yes,
that it doesn't happen, it doesn't continue. When
anymore.
it's happening,
To
it
make
doesn't
sure that
continue.
we bring back the
Right, right.
languages into the
Mm,
national imagination.
right,
See?
correct,
Because
correct,
it's
correct.
like slicing the cake. Okay, the
Mm,
rest throw
mm,
away. We only
mm,
keep this.
correct,
So
ma'am, correct.
the imagination, the imaginative life of more than half the countryside is buried in in oblivion.
Correct, correct. And the way to do it, ma'am, is unfortunately for people like me who does not speak any other languages in the Philippines would be to read a translated version. And it would be really good to have a translation coming from the poet herself. Would you
No,
agree, ma'am?
translators do not seem to think so. Translators, those who translate, those who translate as an art
Mm-hmm,
on their
mm-hmm.
own, in their own,
Apo, apo.
they don't really agree that the poet should be the one, or the person should be the one to
Okay.
translate his own
Mm-hmm.
work. So they would actually prefer the translation to be undertaken by someone else who really
Okay.
understands what he is
Right,
doing.
right, 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 right.
Yeah, I think, Jenny, we begin with translations,
We
but
begin
we
with
do not end
translation.
there. We do not end there. I
Right.
think we begin with translation. And as Filipinos, we should try to master as many of our of our languages as we can, because it can be done. You may not
Mm-hmm.
be able to do it very, very well, but you will be conversant with it as a reading material.
Right,
Will
right.
be, yeah, the
Okay,
way that
okay.
we can read, you know, certain languages in affects, if we really have to. But
Okay.
we can do better than that, because
Right.
our languages are actually really related to one another. The languages are really related to one another.
Mm-mm.
Madaling intindihin.
Madaling
It's
intindihin.
across the barrier, yes. If we just open our minds to learning.
Okay. Okay. So, ma'am, our conversation this afternoon, we went through your context of a muse, or how you started as a writer, as you call yourself an accidental writer, an accidental poet. We looked into your some of the focus of your past, ma'am, by being a mother, by being able to write despite all of the challenges and maybe all of what you needed to do then, and as currently your well, your focus now, ma'am, is to be able to share, right? To be able to share what you have written, what could be done more, no, including what can we do in literature, and as your response to Clinton earlier, how you wish, other people would be writing for your region and for other literatures in the Philippines. um you also mentioned, ma'am, about how nowadays seemingly we are looking at literature as maybe different from how you looked at it in the 1960s, in the 1970s, when you were starting as a budding writer and as a student of the Edith Tiempo. We wonder, ma'am, what your views are in terms of what is rampant nowadays, no? The social media. We now have, ma'am, Twitteritture, no? If you're familiar with Twitter, we now have Twitteritture. And even in my class, I use that as a sample of an emerging genre. We also have in Facebook some of those different ideas in literature. Even in textura, no, is very famous
Yeah.
now. We wonder what our views are in all of these new genres, if you may want to call them, ma'am, no, brought forth by social media and other artificial intelligences, as they call it, ma'am, AIs. Go ahead, ma'am.
Um, hmm, what do I think of this? I think they have a right to be,
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
and people have a right to use or to go for the kind of literature that makes them happy, whatever it is that makes them happy, because we go to literature for various reasons, for various purposes. And whatever, I think you have a right to whatever your particular reason or reasons are for, let's say, indulging
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
imaginative literature. Some of them are good, but some of them are downright evil. uh, but I am not here to judge that, because it's everyone has a right to, I guess, unless you harm anybody, you have a right to do what you want to do, or read what you want to read, and create what you want to create. What do I really think of it? Anything that you put out in print, that you release to the public, has the potential to do either good or evil. Yeah. So a person may have also different reasons why these things he is releasing this particular thing. His reason may either do good or it may do evil. I don't think that has changed. Down the ages, it's always been like that. I don't think that's condition hasn't changed. The only thing we must be worrying about now is that anything you release into the public these days is really released in such a huge way. So the potentiality of accomplishing good or creating havoc is also there. It's also grander.
Right.
So
okay.
I don't
So
think I need to say anything
sorry.
more.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you not saying more, ma'am, it says a lot, no, to all of us.
Yeah.
Right. Ma'am, in this afternoon, we have 127 strong literary enthusiasts listening to you po, no? So would like to open, at this point, we'd like to open the floor to more questions from our audience. They have sent so many to us, no, but would like to call on some more. Ma'am Susan said something here in the chat. Maybe that is one of the reasons why teachers are encouraged to contextualize learning materials used in teaching. Contextualization gives us the chance to use literary pieces written by our local writers. I think that is a rejoinder to the earlier conversation on the other literatures written. It is not the form but the content that matters from Ivy. I think that is really, it connects to what you have said earlier. May we ask for one more question from the audience, please? Would like to hear your voice. May I call on someone from Mindanao? I saw someone from MSU, Mindanao. Let me check that. Ma'am Linda. Sorry, Ma'am Linda. Somebody else. I saw someone from Mindanao.
It's Ma'am
Okay.
Raisa. Ma'am
Okay.
Raisa.
Yes,
Go ahead,
Good
Ma'am Raisa.
afternoon po.
Please go
Yes,
ahead.
ma'am. Sorry for coming late because I was working with the downloading of my Zoom application po.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I
Have your
am very
question, Ma'am
interested
Merlie?
po to know the secrets of Dr. Merlie Alunan on how she is able to reach the top position now in the realm of the Philippine literature. Could you share us, ma'am, on how your secrets formula for becoming a very prominent writer in the entire Philippine wide?
Is there a magic formula, ma'am? Thank you, Ma'am Raisa. Go ahead,
I
Ma'am
don't
Merlie.
even know, my love, that I am a prominent writer.
Oh, you are, ma'am, you are.
I don't even know that. I'm not even aware of that because right here where I live, it's it's very quiet. It's it's just ordinary. And what is my secret? I guess it's not really a secret. It's just pragmatics, you might say. It helps that because I worked with Stillman Writers Workshop. I was a coordinator for some time. And it helps that I was able to meet some writers from Manila, and they became my friends. And they sort of ushered me into the world of publication. So I am grateful to them, and kasi kahit papaano, no, whom you know is also still as important. Yeah. That, but that is not really because I'm sure that even if you know the president of the Philippines himself, you know, it will not help you become whatever you want to be in this government. I guess that there is really no secret except hard work, you know, hard work, read and write, and read and write, and then go back to read and write some more, and not to be happy with what you have written, but to keep on improving it and improving it. And that's just really, you know, really a back-breaking, simple, quiet, ordinary work. You sit down in front of your computer, or you sit down and write and correct and write and correct until you feel that you've handled it, you know, you've tamed, so to speak, your lion. Then you give it to a publisher who will ask a group of professionals to review it. And then they come back and tell you, do this, you revise some more. So you do sit down again, read again, and write again. And that is the only formula that works for me. The only formula that worked for me. Sa ano naman, sa mga sumusulat, hindi naman, it's not just who you know, because those whom you know have also their own reputations to protect. So they will not recommend you or endorse you or ask you to be accepted for publication if they don't agree or they don't believe in what you have done. Hindi naman ganun. So talagang yun lang. It's a very tedious and not at all exciting thing to do. It's just plain basic hard work, I tell you.
Right. And that goes with everything about our life, ma'am, no? That hard work.
That goes with everything. You hear that?
The dog.
There are two dogs under my feet. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
That's the way it is.
Right,
So,
okay.
no formula, sweetheart, except work.
Hard work.
And work.
Right, okay.
And sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be sincere in what you're doing, no? Sincerity and
Right.
that's it. Mm-hmm.
And earlier, ma'am, you said humility. Humility.
Humility too, yes.
Yes.
Because when they tell you to do this and do that and revise, you bow your head and say, yes, I will do that. Because, you know, they're saying this out of the kindness of their heart, not because they want, you know, to show that they're better than you. They're telling you how to make your work better. And if you cannot take that, nothing will happen. Nothing positive will happen.
Okay. Ma'am, we'll step back and go back to the classroom kasi there's a hanging question pala dito from Christian of Gordon College. I'm wondering, sabi niya, ma'am, if you ever included your own poems in your own literature classes, and how's the experience of talking about your own poems in your own classes? Do you do that, ma'am?
No,
Do you?
But
You don't?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I never did. I never
Okay.
did. The same way that Edith Tiempo never did give us her poems in our class. The poems she has
Okay.
written. She never did.
Right. So
Yeah.
in short, ma'am, your students know your poems because you are you and not because you've introduced them to your work.
Yes, it's like
All
that.
right. Okay.
I might ask them to read it in private, you know, like, I have a new poem, will you read it? they will read it and they'll give their opinions, or yeah, sometimes they do, sometimes
But-
they don't.
But it's not really part of the
I
syllabus.
never brought my own poems into my own classrooms.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's nice to know, ma'am, ha? That's something, medyo ano yon, medyo para sa amin, parang, di pag-usapan natin ang tulang meron ka, no? Because in our classrooms, we bring out some of our works. Although I'm not a writer, ma'am, but I know people who bring out some works, no? That's critical to know. Okay, other questions?
I
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I did bring out some of my works in a workshop, but it's
Mhm.
always anonymous. It's yeah, it's
Okay.
anonymous. It's not
Okay.
presented as mine. Sometimes I use it as a teaching material.
Right.
I use
Okay.
it to teach because I know exactly the process that I went into when I did a particular piece.
Okay.
So, that's why I bring them into the classroom.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Um, I'll pose the last two questions, maybe, ma'am, and this will be focused on the classroom, our curriculum on literature. There's much to be done, no, in how the Philippines view literature as a body of knowledge. In fact, meron kaming tinanggap na tanong, ma'am, mula sa participants natin na seemingly yung panitikan ay hindi tinitingnan ng ibang mga dalubguro na maaring gamitin sa mga researches, no? In particular, maybe
True. Mm-mm.
nakaranas ng rejection itong participant natin kasi ang tanong nila, some people, some professors, as noted, advise their students not to use literature as a thesis focus, etc., no? And maybe this is one thing that is missing in our education system. Bilang kayo naman, ma'am, ay guro din, ano po, hindi lamang manunulat kundi guro din. What other than what we've discussed earlier about literature, go ahead, ma'am, and have water.
I'm asking them to bring me water.
Right. Okay. What else do you think, ma'am, may be lacking in our system in the view of literature and literature teaching po? Go ahead, ma'am, and have and drink water, take water first.
And why?
And
Um, I think that the planners of our curriculum, or the educational system as a rule, especially administrators, they have a misguided belief that literature is easy.
Yeah.
Yes. They think that literature is just, a few fancy words, and it has no bearing at all with any important event that's happening in the world. So that is really very sad, because I'd like to tell anyone that if you really that if literature is to be taught properly, it is really one of the most difficult subjects to teach.
Yeah.
You will agree with me that all literature teachers will agree with me that literature is not the easiest subject to teach. On the other hand, I feel that and the reason why it's difficult is because it practically touches on all aspects of the human life, from the personal to the economic to the social to the political to the philosophical to religious. Kadami-dami niyang dala.
Opo.
And a person who is well taught in literature becomes a very educated person indeed, because he knows how to correlate, he knows how to integrate, he knows how to critique, he knows how to balance, he knows when he is being made a fool of anything. And so it's a very vital course to teach in school at any level. But I think we have not taken our literature teachers too seriously. We make them languish. We do not give them enough support, no textbooks. Um, and yeah, because, I taught in this, provincial schools. I've always taught in the provinces, and I knew how deprived, and I know how deprived the schools are of literary materials. So why? Because these have not been taken seriously by the system itself. They feel that, pang literature lang yan, pang paganda-ganda lang yan, wala namang sinasabi talaga, because they don't understand what is inside the body of literature that we are writing, for the country. So I feel that we must really push, literature teachers must push for the value of, for the true value of literature in the curriculum, and uh, make people realize that if you have an engineer, he can build a bridge, but he cannot be a true human being just by being able to build a bridge. He must understand why that bridge is there, and how it will affect people's lives. So and that's the kind of learning, that's the kind of ability that the person develops. We are not really training poets when we teach literature. We're training people to become better human beings.
Right.
That's what I believe in.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, ang ganda-ganda na naman nung metaphor mo, no? It's like a bridge, no? It's building that bridge, no? To be able to connect maybe one person to the other, one generation to the others. It's more than just looking into the words. It's making it alive, making it get the life, no, for the people, right? For the people to learn and people to live. Ano po? Ma'am, yung konteksto po ng panitikan, no, na nagsasabuhay ng buhay, no, nagsasabuhay ng lipunan natin,
Yes.
if given the opportunity and if done correctly, as you said, if done correctly, do you think it would solve? Well, maybe that's a tall order. At least alleviate, no, that kind of grief-stricken, that that legacy of being poor, that legacy of being small, right? In Nick Joaquin's heritage of smallness, of being that small context of a Filipino, that we're just, Filipino. Do you think it would help us as a country, ma'am, by looking at our literary texts?
Yes, because literature should be a source of pride. What
Mhm.
our people have written, and the sad thing, Jen,
Apo.
is more than half of this country have not read our literature. Gawa tayo ng gawa ng poetry, ng mga libro, wala namang bumabasa.
And maybe we're partly to be blamed. Maybe our teachers, our curriculum, ma'am, talaga, the system, no, is partly to be blamed because talagang ang yaman-yaman natin sa panitikan.
The curriculum is designed to disrupt exactly that kind of understanding, the education of our imagination.
Right, ma'am.
Educate the imagination, and the most immediate way to do that is through our literature.
Okay.
And we should open the doors of academe to all the literatures being written in the country, because the imagination of our people is there. And if you can imagine wealth, then we can become wealthy. But if the imagination is geared towards seeing ourselves as poor, and poor for the rest of our lives, and poor for all eternity, how can we be able to move out of our, of our swamp? How can we move out of our condition? Educate the imagination of the people. Tell them they're human beings. They have certain rights. They have certain rights. They have a right to dignity.
Right.
have a
Correct.
right to comfort, have a right to happiness and security. And all of that you learn in literature.
Yes. Dami pang gagawin
But
ng leap.
all of that, not all our people have heard.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Not all our people have
Agree.
heard. You teach English and American literature, for heaven's sake. In most of our curriculum, ang dami-dami. But we have not read our Filipino writers.
Our very own. No? Tama,
Our
ma'am.
very own.
Marami pang gagawin ang leap,
Oh,
ma'am.
nako.
Talagang kulang ang oras na ito para marinig namin ang iyong damdamin, ang iyong opinyon sa mga bagay-bagay. May ihahabol lang akong isang tanong na lang, ma'am, na nandito sa chat. Palagay ko ay importante. Sabi ni Miss Mahul, creative writing and creative nonfiction are courses taught in the senior high school. Does a literature teacher need a formal training in creative writing, if not a degree in such, in order to instruct high school students? What do you think, ma'am?
If a teacher loves what he's doing, and if a teacher can read very well, he knows how to read creative nonfiction, for example, he knows what to look for, then he can guide his
He can
students.
guide. Okay.
He can guide his students. Kasi naman, teaching literature is not teaching them the what of it. It's guiding them to discover. Teaching literature is a journey of discovery in most instances. It's never, okay, memorize this line and repeat it to me tomorrow. That's not the way you teach literature. It's discovery. It's a voyage of discovery. One lesson is a voyage of discovery between you and your students.
Right.
Diba?
Opo. Ay, naku, ma'am, ang dami-dami naming natutunan, ang dami-daming metaphors. Palagay ko ay gagamitin na agad namin sa Lunes, no? Sa pagtuturo sa Lunes na mga narinig namin sa'yo. Really, our 1 hour with you is not enough, but we thank you for this time, ma'am, for giving us your thoughts. I now request Jay, our board member, Mr. Maravilla. Go ahead, Jay.
Thank you very much for allowing me, first of all. Thank you very much for allowing me to air some of these things that, of course, I think about, but I have no one to say this to. So now I have 150 people who heard me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
This 150 will spread the word a little bit.
Yes, ma'am. You bet it po. You bet it. Leap will spread the word. Go ahead, Jay.
Yes. To start with, allow me to quote a stanza from one of Ma'am Merlie's poems. Still her words came, an endless joyous spring. He swam in its flood, he filled his mouth with them, and still she loved him and loved him. Her words flooded his mind and stole his sleep. This is taken from the poem Woman of Many Words from Tales of the Spider Woman, published in 2008. To a fellow Ilonggo, maayong hapon, Ma'am Merlie. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, truly we are flooded with her words this afternoon. We have a poet par excellence in our virtual midst, and truly, Ma'am Merlie, you have flooded us with beautiful metaphors. In solitude and in retirement, we have learned that you have been inspired by the Tiempos of Silliman University, and you were introduced to the world of poetry and the relationship of the word to the writers, to the place, and to the universe. As a master of the pen, you have emphasized humility in writing, a person developing a relationship with the word. You metaphorically advised us to be friendly with words running in your mind. Then we read. There's no other way to become familiar with words. We must treat words like a lover. We sleep, we dream, we hum with words. Now, as a writer, there might be bad days in writing. People may give awful criticisms, but it will be all right. It will also be helpful to be surrounded by other great writers, to be at home. Because in your time, like what you have said, Ma'am Merlie, it is not easy for women to indulge in the creative life. They have the gift, but they would feel that they are cheated and would end up in doing nothing. But like what our dear Ma'am Merlie would say, being a poet just happened. as a teacher of literature, we have learned that we can learn a lot also from our students. When we teach poetry, we make poetry comprehensible in a very simple way. Approach the way we approach it with any other poems, like who is speaking the poem, the context in which the speech is made, because you, Ma'am Merlie, no, you have seen poems as a human utterance. It starts from a condition, a psychological state. So we then ask, who is the speaker speaking to? Then we can understand what the speech is trying to do. We establish a conversation with the poem ourselves, such a very profound advice. Then it becomes meaningful with the students, and we use the language people use every day when we teach. As an emphasis was also given on regional literature. Through regional literature, we bring back the languages into the national imagination, so you say. And with the technology, you have said that people has the right to use different medium in accessing literature with technology. As advice to all of these jittering writers hiding deep in our hearts, you said, work hard, read and write, and then go back to read and write, not to be happy with what you have written, but still rewrite it, improve it, write and correct until we have tamed the lion. Then submit it to publication, follow the advice of the publishers, then write and correct, and then write and correct again. But most importantly, we have to be sincere with what we are doing. On literature and literature teaching, many have this misguided belief that literature is easy, that it is not that important in this world. You have said that it is a sad state. Yes, it is, and we are one with that. If literature is to be taught properly, it is one of the most difficult subjects to teach because it touches all aspects of human life. It is a vital subject. We need support, no? As literature teachers, we really need support, and we must really push the value of literature in the curriculum. And finally, we as literature teachers, we train or teach people to become better human beings, like what you have said. Literature should be a source of pride, especially our regional and national literature. We build imagination through literature, educate the imagination of the people, and tell them that they have certain rights, including the right to dignity, security, and comfort. And all of that we can learn from literature. Ma'am Merlie, truly, time is never our friend today. Madamo gid nga salamat, Ma'am Merlie.
Mugid na salamat.
Thank you, Jay. Parang nakagawa na ng thesis si
May I
Jay.
say a little bit, something, last word. No?
Go ahead, ma'am.
When we are teaching literature, especially if the literature is in English, our tendency is to use English to
Right.
batter our kids, to insist on our kids to speak in English, with the result that they clam up instead. No? Now, in the last years of my teaching, I set aside the language protocol.
Right.
I use the native language, whatever the language of the students are. And I tell you that the understanding is deeper, more profound, more
Right.
lasting.
Right.
So forget English. Use your mother tongue when dealing with literature, whether the literature is in English or not.
Tama. Hay, tama.
That's the last word. And I
Yes,
absolutely
ma'am.
believe in that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Panindigan po yan ng leave. Ma'am, sa panghuling punto, tinatawagan ko po si Camille para sa huling mga context. Bago po ang photo opportunity, ha? Wag po kayong aalis. Go ahead, Camille.
Okay. Ayan, Ma'am Merlie, maraming salamat po. Grabe tago sa puso bilang guro, bilang isang tao yung mga pahayag niyo po ngayong araw. Salamat po sa hamon na iniwan niyo sa aming henerasyon. Grabe, naiyak ako kanina pa. Naway balang araw mag-guide niyo po kami, hindi lang bilang
talaga.
isang manunulat.
Talaga yung mga literature teachers, iyakin.
Ay, opo. Bilang isang mahusay na at mapagmahal na guro sa panitikan. Grabe mo, sobrang nadama ko yung mga sinabi niyo ngayong hapon. Ayan, so maraming salamat po sa lahat ng dumalo ngayong hapon at umasa po kayong hindi pa ito yung huli dahil muli nagsisimula pa lamang po ang leap ngayong taon. Sa mga susunod na linggo po, makakasama naman natin ang isa na namang natatanging manunulat. Walang iba kundi si Ma'am Bebang Singh. Exciting po, di ba? Hintayin lamang po natin ang mga patalasta sa mga susunod na araw ukol dito. Muli, ngayon pa lamang po ay nais na namin imbitahan ng bawat isa sa ating nagbabalik na face-to-face conference sa darating na Oktubre 26 hanggang 28. Saan? Walang iba kung hindi sa Palawan. Ang ating pong komperehensya ay may temang pagpapanatiling matatag ng edukasyong pampanitikaan sa mundong nagbabago. Ang kompleto pong detalye nito ay ilalabas din natin sa mga susunod na araw, kaya pakaabangan po natin yan. At para po sa mas updated na impormasyon ukol sa mga gawain ng DEEP, maaari po nating i-like o i-follow ang ating mga official page sa Facebook, sa Twitter, at syempre sa ating website. Yung mga link po ay nasa ating chat box para madali nyo pong ma-access. At uli, magbubukas ng muli ang bagong cycle ng ating membership ngayong Hunyo, ngayong June po, kaya sama-sama natin at naway sana po ay maging kasama pa rin natin ang isa't isa. Magpa-register lamang po sa ating membership link na nasa ating chat box din. At syempre, naging